So in this video, I want to take a look at the behaviour of both Richard Allen and Keegan Klein post the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Now the best place I believe to start with this is the fact that we have Richard Allen coming forward to a conservation officer, giving some details after these murders and basically putting himself at the scene of the crime. He said, yes, I was there that day. I parked up at the old farm building. I was wearing a blue jacket and blue jeans. I was on the bridge for a period of time watching some fish. And then I basically made my way home. I didn't see the girls. I didn't see Abigail or Liberty during my walk. I did happen to pass a few other individuals, but I certainly didn't see the two girls in question. Now, over the past few weeks, we've had a lot of discussion regarding why Richard Allen would commit these murders and then come forward to the police, almost handing himself in a weird sort of way. Now, there are multiple ways in which you can look at this. Either this was someone who was fearful, he was concerned that he'd been seen by a certain amount of people, those people are going to be giving descriptions, and they might turn up on his doorstep, and the fact that he hasn't come forward would look incredibly suspicious. Or you could take the other stance, which is that maybe this person wanted to insert himself into this investigation. Maybe he got something from this. Maybe he got some sort of sick thrill from this. Not only had he committed these two terrible murders, but now he's almost hoodwinking the authorities. He's inserting himself into the investigation. He's pallying up with those people who are actually looking for him. Now, my interpretation of why Richard Allen came forward to law enforcement is simply because he was concerned. He was worried by the fact that he'd been seen by those juvenile females near Freedom Bridge. He was concerned that they'd got a good look at his face and that he may be identified at a later date. Combine that with the fact that we also had a passing motorist, a lady who claims that she saw a man wearing a blue jacket and blue jeans covered in mud and blood. He would have been aware most likely of that passing car. He would have been aware of those juvenile females that he passed very close to near Freedom Bridge. And after the murders, he's thinking to himself, what do I do now? If these girls are shown photographs of me and they pick me out of some kind of identity parade or whatever, how am I going to explain that I didn't come forward and give the police my whereabouts at the earliest opportunity? Also remember that Richard Allen worked out in the public domain. This was a forward-facing person, a person who worked at the local CVS store. If one of those individuals at a later date came into his workplace and identified him, went to the police, and then Richard Allen has to explain why he didn't come forward earlier, that's going to put undue pressure on Richard Allen after these murders have been committed. So in Richard Allen's own mind, his safest bet is to appear completely innocent. Is to come forward and put himself there that day. Yes, I was there. Yeah, I was there. I was just going for a walk. I often go for a walk in that area. I didn't see the girls. This is what I was wearing. And it's really interesting about the fact that he actually describes exactly what he was wearing. I was wearing a blue jacket. I was wearing blue jeans. But the one thing that we need to remember, what is absolutely paramount, is that Richard Allen most likely had no idea that he'd been caught on Liberty German's cell phone. Now, putting yourself in the position of Richard Allen here again, just for one moment, he believes he's been seen before the murders. He believes he's been seen after these murders. But one thing that he is convinced of at this point in time before he approaches law enforcement is that no one, not one single person, has seen him with the girls. No one has seen him talking to the girls. No one has seen him abducting these girls, and no one has seen him killing these girls. So in his mind, to come forward, it's fairly safe. Because yes, there will be a subsection of people that say, yes, I did see a man that day. He was wearing a blue jacket and blue jeans. Okay, that's Richard Allen. He's already come forward. On we go. That's how it plays out in his mind. But what he wasn't expecting, he was not expecting that video. He was not expecting to be on the TV, for his voice to be played, for this individual to be prime suspect number one throughout the country. He was not expecting that. He would never have come forward to the police if he knew of the existence of that video. And isn't it strange that the police, they knew who they were looking for. We're looking for this individual. This is the person that we believe is responsible for the deaths of these two girls. Guys down the hill. Can you imagine what went through his mind when he saw that on the TV? When he saw that on the news? He must have been thinking to himself, well, my days are numbered. They're going to be coming for me in the next hour. They'll be here tomorrow to arrest me. And they never arrived, did they? They just never turned up on Richard Allen's doorstep until more than 5 years later. Now, when we take a look at the behaviour of Keegan Klein post the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German, it's very, very telling, I believe. Now, we know that both Keegan Klein, he himself and his father went to Vegas shortly after the murders of these two girls. And during that trip, something spooked him. He was really concerned by something that took place. Maybe it's his involvement. Maybe it's his knowledge of what took place. But what we do know is that there was a big press conference held on the 22nd of February 2017. It was when law enforcement released more details about the man that they were looking for, the man on the bridge, the voice of the man on the bridge. And this concerned Keegan Klein, concerned him so much that he wiped one of his devices the very next day, the Samsung device. We have this press conference with new information released on the 22nd of February. The very next day, Keegan Klein is wiping his Samsung phone. He is searching regarding the case. Tips pour in over Delphi killings. He's listening to the man's voice on the bridge over and over again. He's making curious search terms like, how long does DNA last on a body? Now, if Keegan Klein just had some circumstantial connection to this case, and by that I mean he communicated with the girls, but he had absolutely no idea of any kind of meet that was planned for that day. He had no idea who they were going to meet, and he most definitely didn't have any clue whatsoever who the man on the bridge was. Then why would you be searching for that search term? How long does DNA last on a body? He knows that if this gets back to the person who killed these girls and they find him, he knows that they're also going to find him. That he's connected in this somehow. And I think it all comes back to this iPhone 5, this iPhone 5C. The police, the investigators during Keegan Klein's police interview seem adamant that Keegan Klein communicated with the girls on at least one occasion with using that iPhone 5. So where was that iPhone 5 when they raided the Kline property when he returned home from Vegas? Who had that phone? Did Richard Allen have that phone? Did Richard Allen return that phone? Did Keegan Klein wipe the phone and then hand that phone in? Is that what happened? How could the police miss that phone on an extensive and thorough search of the Kline property? Is it because that phone wasn't there? And if that phone wasn't there, then who had that phone? Now, when looking at the police interview conducted with Keegan Klein, it's fairly evident that the investigators believe that there was more than one individual communicating with girls. They believe that because of the way in which these communications went. Maybe the spelling was different, words that individuals would use when communicating with these girls, but they certainly believed that there was more than one person communicating with these girls via these devices. Now, could this be Keegan Klein, Tony Kline and Richard Allen? Absolutely. Could this be Keegan Klein and Richard Allen on their own? Absolutely. But we're led to believe here that there's just some sort of perfect storm which has been created. That Richard Allen just pulls up in his black Ford Focus, makes his way toward the Monon High Bridge and encounters Liberty German and Abigail Williams, two girls who happen to have been communicating with the catfishing account Anthony Shots, which was run by Keegan Klein. Everything that I read regarding this case is pointing me in the direction of Richard Allen being one of the users of these accounts, being one of the individuals who is communicating with these girls. And I think that's why Keegan Klein was so paranoid, so concerned, so worried during his trip to Vegas, a trip where he's supposed to be relaxing, enjoying his time away with his dad. And yet he is researching the case, looking at the latest news regarding the Delphi murders. resetting a Samsung phone the day after a major press conference concerning these murders. Why would you do that? Why would you be so concerned about the perpetrator being caught? Because he knew, as I said earlier, he knew that as soon as they get Richard Allen, it's all going to come tumbling down. They're going to be coming for him. Because he's not just a person who is catfishing girls. He is someone who has knowingly allowed access to his devices to a secondary individual who has committed murder. Now, if Keegan Klein played absolutely no part whatsoever in these murders, and I can't really for the life of me work out why Keegan Klein wouldn't be more forthcoming and more honest at an earlier stage, because police have already got him, haven't they? They've already got the devices, they've got the CSAM material, they've got the chat logs, they've got the communication between himself and these girls or Liberty German. Why wouldn't you just say, look, yeah, okay, there is a secondary user, it's this individual, or I've lent my phone out to this person? Because he doesn't want that person to speak, does he? Whatever's happened, whatever's taken place is going to come back to him in some way. Whether that is, handing out a phone to somebody else, whether that is facilitating the meet for that day. There is some level of concern here from Keegan Klein. Like the searches, why would you be bothered? Why would you be interested in how long DNA lasts on a body? Because he's concerned about the real person being caught. Because he doesn't want him to talk. If Richard Allen is that individual and he turns around and says, yeah, okay, this was facilitated. It was facilitated by Keegan Klein. I met the girls. The meeting was set up for me. Keegan Klein knows he's done, doesn't he, at that point? He doesn't want this individual caught. And you need to ask yourself why that is. Why is Keegan Klein concerned and paranoid about the perpetrator being caught for this crime? Because he knows that in some way, shape or form, this leads back to him.
We're not stopping. The poster in front of you. Someone knows who this individual is. Someone knows who this individual is. Is it a family member? Is it a neighbor? Is it an acquaintance? Is it an associate? Or maybe that one guy that lives over at that one place that just kind of not right. Maybe it's his jeans. Maybe it's his jacket or his sweatshirt. Maybe it's his shirt tail. Maybe it's his posture. Maybe it's the right hand in his pocket. You see, even with technology, we need human intelligence. In other words, we need you. I'm not suggesting that science, that everything that we can do as science has been done, because we are just getting started. Some might not want to talk about it because they don't want to get involved, because they know the individual. Again, he may be a family member, probably has family. No one will ever know. No one will ever know. There's not an agency on the planet better than helping us facilitate this than the FBI. And they're as entrenched in this as anybody. No one will know. As poor as this picture is, somebody knows. And if you're watching, we'll find you. You're going to hear more in just a minute about what we know. Do not discount the voice that you'll hear. We will stay committed with resolve, very, very rarely exhibited with human behavior until this conclusion. Please be patient. Become our partners and communicate with us as often as you can.
To the members of the community, when I met with our behavioral analysis unit and in their expertise and their experience, it is oftentimes even unwitting that a member of the community may have information that is germane to this investigation. And I'd like the community to go back 9 days and go back to the afternoon of February 13th, Monday, February 13th, and just think if you had an interaction with an individual who inexplicably canceled an appointment that you had had together, or an individual called into work sick and canceled an important appointment or a social engagement, and at the time gave what would have been a plausible explanation. My cell phone broke, or I had a flat tire on my car. But in retrospect, that excuse no longer holds water. That may be important. Likely so are behavioral indicators that this individual may have exhibited since the afternoon of May 13th. Did this individual travel unexpectedly? Did they change their appearance? Did they shave their beard, cut their hair, change the color of their hair? The superintendent mentioned the clothes that this individual was wearing in the photo. Did they change the way they dress?
We do have some new information for you today. It's in the form of an audio file from the cell phone that Liberty German had with her at the time. We're not going to play everything that we have, but Liberty had the presence of mind to turn on her video camera. Again, we're not going to be able to share everything with you, but we are going to share this audio clip with you momentarily with the hope that somebody will recognize this voice. And I want to be very clear that what you're about to hear is just 4 short words. Excuse me, 3 words. Down the hill. You're going to hear this played 4 times. The audio quality is not superb, but there's enough there that somebody could recognize this person's voice. And as Superintendent Carter said, not to rationalize away. If you hear this today and you think, my God, that sounds like fill in the blank, call us. Make an anonymous tip. Tell us who you think it is. Let us investigate it. If it's not the right person, they'll just be out a little bit of time and they'll be cleared and they can go on and they'll never know that you called. But you may tell us who the right person was. And you could be the person that helps us to solve this horrible crime. Micah, play the clip, please. Would you play it one more time?